right, so this morning we are going to finish reading La Mariposa, and we're going to find out how Francisco reacts to his teacher telling him not to speak English. Sorry if I sound stuffy. I sneezed like 12 times in a row right before I started this video. Often during recess, Francisco stayed with the caterpillar. Sometimes it was hard to spot him because he blended in with the green leaves and twigs. Every day, Francisco brought him leaves from the pepper trees that grew on the playground. Just in front of the caterpillar, lying on top of the cabinet, was a picture book of caterpillars and butterflies. Francisco liked to look through it page by page, studying all the pictures and running his fingers lightly over the caterpillars and the bright wings of the butterflies and the many patterns of them. He knew caterpillars turned into butterflies because Roberto had told him. But just how did they do it? How long did it take? The words written underneath each picture in big black letters could tell him he knew. So he tried to figure them out by looking at the pictures. He did this so many times he could close his eyes and see the words, but he still could not understand what they meant. What interests Francisco about the caterpillar near his desk? Like, why do you think it's so interesting to him? Yeah, I think it's like a distraction to him, but not in a bad way, like a good distraction that kind of keeps his mind off the things that are happening. By the time Papa started topping carrots in March, art had become Francisco's favorite time at school. He did not understand Miss Scalapino when she explained the art lessons, so she let him do whatever he wanted. Do you see that picture? Oh, there we go. He drew all kinds of animals, but mostly birds and butterflies. He sketched them in pencil and then colored them using every color in his crayon box. He got pretty good at drawing butterflies. Miss Scalapino even tacked one of his pictures up on the board for everyone to see. After a couple of weeks, it disappeared, and he did not know how to ask where it had gone. So he had a special picture that is now gone. Like, he drew it, and his teacher took it. How do you think he's feeling right now? Do you think he's worried? Do you think maybe she didn't like it? One cold Thursday morning during recess, Francisco was the only kid on the playground without a jacket. The principal must have noticed that he was shivering because after school, he took him to his office and pulled out a green jacket from a large cardboard box full of used clothes. He handed it to Francisco and gestured for him to try it on. It smelled like graham crackers. Francisco put it on, but it was too big, so he rolled up the sleeves about 2 inches. Then he took it home and showed it off to his parents. He liked it because it was green and it hid his suspenders. The next day, Francisco wore his new jacket to school. He was on the playground waiting for the first bell to ring when he saw Curtis coming at him like an angry bull. Do you see that simile right there? Like an angry bull. Curtis aimed his head at Francisco, pulled his arms straight back with his hands clenched, and ran up to him yelling. Francisco did not understand him, but he knew it had something to do with the jacket because Curtis began to pull on it, trying to take it off. Next thing Francisco knew, he and Curtis were on the ground wrestling. Kids circled around them. He could hear them yelling Curtis's name and something else. Francisco knew he had no chance. Curtis was so much bigger and stronger, but he held tight on his jacket. Why should he let him take it? Curtis pulled on one of the sleeves so hard it ripped at the shoulder. He pulled on the right pocket and it ripped too. It says Francisco cannot understand why Curtis reacts the way he does when he sees that jacket. Why do you think Curtis acted the way he did? Why do you think Curtis attacked him and wanted that jacket back? Yeah, because it was his jacket, but Francisco didn't know that, and the principal didn't know that when he gave it to him. So he's just trying to get it back, but Francisco doesn't know the language, so he doesn't understand what is happening. Miss Scalapino's face appeared above them. She pushed Curtis off Francisco, grabbed Francisco by the back of his collar, and picked him up off the ground. It took all the power he had not to cry. Later, Arthur told Francisco in Spanish that Curtis said the jacket was his, that he had lost it at the beginning of the year. He also told Francisco that the teacher said Curtis and he were being punished. They had to sit on the bench during all their recesses that week. For the rest of the day, Francisco could not even pretend he was paying attention. He laid his head on top of his desk and closed his eyes. He couldn't even imagine himself flying over the fields to Papa anymore. The teacher called his name, but Francisco did not answer. He heard her walk up to him. She gently shook him by the shoulders. Again, he did not answer. Miss Scalapino must have thought he was dead asleep because she left him alone, even when it was time for recess and everyone left the room. Once the room was quiet, Francisco slowly opened his eyes. He had had them closed for so long that the sunlight coming through the windows was too bright. He rubbed his eyes with the back of his hands and then looked for the caterpillar in the jar. Where was it? Was it hidden? He put his hands in the jar and lightly stirred the leaves. Then he saw it. The caterpillar had spun itself into a cocoon. It had attached itself to a small twig, and now it looked like a tiny cotton bulb. Gently, Francisco stroked it with his index finger. It seemed so peaceful. What do you think right here? You see my note that says the mood. What is the mood of this page right here? How is Francisco feeling? Is it like a sad mood? Is it angry still? Is it happy? I think it's kind of like a confused mood. Like he's confused by the light. He's confused by the teacher trying to wake him. He's confused about a caterpillar. Like there's lots of text evidence to prove that maybe he's a little bit confused. At the end of the school day, Miss Scalapino gave Francisco a note to take home to his parents. Papa and Mama did not know how to read, but as soon as they saw his swollen upper lip and the scratches on his cheek, they knew what the note said. When he told them what had happened, they both frowned and glared at him. But it's good you didn't respect the teacher, Papa finally said. Francisco never saw the green jacket again. It had gone back to Curtis, who didn't wear it any more because the days were growing warmer. Francisco never spoke to Curtis, but slowly he began to say a few English words like thank you and okay to Arthur and the other kids, and sometimes his teacher. On Wednesday, May 23rd, a few days before the end of the school year, Miss Scalapino told everyone to sit down. Then Francisco did not understand any more of what she said until he heard her say, "Francisco!" as she held up a blue ribbon. From her desk, she picked up his drawing of the butterfly that had disappeared from the board so many weeks before. Holding it up high for everyone to see, she walked up to Francisco and handed him the drawing and the blue silk ribbon that had a number 1 printed on it in gold. I don't know Spanish very well. Que sorpresa! He had received first prize for his drawing. He was so proud he wanted to run home right away to tell Mama and Papa. All the kids, including Curtis, rushed over to see his ribbon. That afternoon, during free period, Francisco went over to check on the caterpillar. He turned the jar around, trying to see the cocoon. Then he gasped. It was beginning to crack open. "Look, look," he cried out, pointing to it. The whole class, like a swarm of bees, rushed over to the counter. Miss Scalapino took the jar and placed it on top of a desk in the middle of the classroom so everyone could see it. For a while, they all stood there watching the butterfly come out of its cocoon in slow motion like magic. At the end of the day, just before the last bell rang, Miss Scalapino picked up the jar and took the class outside to the playground. She placed the jar on the ground and everyone circled around. He calls out in English and he said, "Look, look." Now does he seem nervous, or does he starting to seem a little bit normal, a little more excited about things? Francisco had a hard time seeing over the other kids, so Miss Scalapino called him and motioned for him to open the jar. Breaking through the circle, he knelt on the ground and unscrewed the top. Swiftly, the butterfly flew into the air, fluttering its orange and black wings up and down. "Que hermosa!" Francisco said, but softly under his breath so no one would hear him speak Spanish. Miss Scalapino must have heard it, though. "Que hermosa!" she repeated, smiling down at Francisco. How beautiful. Why do you think she didn't scold him this time? Like, scolding means, like, get on to him. Why do you think she didn't get onto him this time? She just was like, it's okay. Yeah, I think it's because he said it to himself and he was just kind of whispering the excitement. After school, Francisco waited in line for his bus in front of the playground. In his right hand, he carried the blue ribbon, and in his left, the drawing. Arthur and Curtis came up to him and stood behind him to wait for the bus. Curtis motioned for Francisco to show him the drawing again. He held it up so Curtis could see it. He really likes it, Francisco, Arthur said to him. How do you say es tuo in English? He asked. It's yours, Arthur answered. It's yours, Francisco repeated, and handed the drawing to Curtis. Why do you think Francisco gave that drawing to Curtis? Like, I don't really think maybe not necessarily an apology, but maybe to show that he was caring, to show like, I want to be your friend, but I don't know how. And that's the end of the book. So let's talk about the message of this book. What do you think the author wanted us to learn from this book? I think he wanted us to learn from Francisco that sometimes life can be hard, but you can still make friends, but you have to work really hard at it. That we need to care for others who don't necessarily speak our language, different things like that about transforming from one to the next. And I think the butterfly did a really good job of that. It kind of went along with Francisco in transforming into something good in the end. So